Okay. Hello again. So our research led us to understand a few things. More research has been done into the metaphysical and the parasential after the time we've spoken or we've last interacted. So here are some things we found. We found that we are not individuated based on the fact that the soul can exist separately from the body. So what does that mean? That means the human being, or what we call the physical, spiritual, mental, soul, mind, body, spirit being, or the higher intellect, or the Homo sapien, is not individuated. We are not individuals based on the fact that the soul can exist separately from the body. So, based on the fact that the soul can exist separately from the body, or a soul can exist in a different dimension from the body, that means that we are not individuated. And also, it means so much that if you think about it, sitting in the meditation of the Buddha, you see that the soul exists separately from the body in a different dimension, meaning that as long as the soul can exist differently and the body can exist differently, we are not one being. We are not one per being per se. We are not individuated, okay? We are probably multiple persona or diverse characteristic or diversity characterized. Anyway, there's another thing we found is that there's no real thing to prove that gauge symmetry isn't emergent and can't be caused. Also, there's nothing proven it exists. Okay, so gauge symmetry is probably the reason why we can enter a room that is full of darkness or light or water or any material, anything with characteristics or anything at all, and we can see that this is the thing. But without gauge symmetry, none of our theories work. It's basically Occam's razor, the hypothetical, what is it called? It's like the Occam's razor for all uh all laws, meaning that all laws exist as the same in any dimension. So all laws exist simultaneously, exist as the same law. So if you discover a law in this dimension, it will exist as the same in every dimension. That's what comes to it. That means all observations, all observable realities are exist as the same. Okay, based on the same laws. Okay, now that's gauge symmetry basically. Gauge symmetry is what proves why some particles have mass and other particles don't have mass. And it's the reason why we see something to be physical and something not to be physical. It's all because of our brain's gauge symmetry and the gauge symmetry of the brain able to sympathize, or not really sympathize, but materialize or quantize or basically form or gauge in a symmetric way these I wouldn't say non-existence, but these things which are beyond human understanding, or these unquantifiable things. So it's basically the things beyond human understanding that human understanding tries to understand. And we say that space is massless and light is massless, and we say space is made of strings, and we say that um darkness could be made of dark matter particles, and we say that darkness could be a substrate and light could be a disturbance of that substrate, or darkness is the absence of light and light is the presence of a field of energy which is impermeable. Now we can say all these things relating to relating to relating to relating to physics and science. But you see, the thing is, it's all boiled down to gauge symmetry and how the fact that, like what I'm saying is that there's no real thing to prove that gauge symmetry isn't emergent and can't be caused. That means there's nothing to prove that our understanding of the universe, basically what we call gauge symmetry, or basically not just our understanding of the universe, but the universe itself and the laws that make the universe what it aren't emergent or isn't emergent and cannot be caused. So we don't know that cause itself cannot be caused. And we also don't know that there's nothing proving that it exists. We don't know that there's absolutely nothing proving that it exists. Okay, that cause actually exists. We also don't know that cause can be caused either. When I say that energy can only increase when it's not repetitive or it's not continuous. Example, neutral energy will produce circular motion, while imbalanced energy will produce linear motion. Energy can only decrease when continuous or repetitive. This leads us to conclude that the universe must be continuous since it's expanding. Now let me try to explain that. It says that energy can only increase when it's not repetitive or it's not continuous. So if energy is repetitive or is continuous, it will not increase. Okay, that means that if energy is repetitive, something that an occasional action, a constant action that keeps happening occasionally, or it's continuous in such a way that it's continuous, it means that it will not increase. Okay, because energy can only increase when it's not repetitive or it's not continuous. Okay, that means that natural energy will produce circular motion, while imbalanced energy will produce linear motion. Neutral energy, sorry. Neutral energy will produce circular motion, while imbalanced energy will produce linear motion. That means that if the energy is neutral in a field where the energy is neutral, totally neutral, there's a constant energy field where everything is neutral. It's not one, it's not zero, it's not two, it's not negative. It's just totally neutral. It will produce circular motion, okay? While imbalanced energy will produce linear motion. That means if it's slightly tilted to the left, slightly tilted to the right, diagonally, it will produce a linear motion. Okay. Now, energy can only decrease when continuous or repetitive. Okay. This leads me to conclude that the universe must be continuous. Must be continuous since it's expanding. Okay, now that means that since the universe is expanding, it must be continuous. Okay, because this is actually quite deep because it's trying to say that the universe must be continuous since it's expanding. Means that its energy is not increasing, it's only expanding. Okay, that means it's continuous, and its energy is continuous and it's repetitive because it's expanded. Okay, that means that it's not increasing, it's only expanding. It's expanding in such a way that it's we can't say that it's gaining energy, but we can say that it is protruding. It's not elongating, but it is protruding. Elongating meaning that it is something which is stretching itself, but this time it is something which is elongating means it's something which is being stretched, but protruding means it's something which is stretching itself. Okay, it's stretching from the within. So that's why it's not continuous. That's why it's continuous, and that's why it's expanding, and that's why it's not increasing. Sorry. Now, time is greater than energy. What I mean by time is greater than energy is that we found that time is also greater than energy. We found that time being greater than energy means that time is the constant and energy is not the actual constant. Without time, there can be no energy, basically. It's not any without energy, there can be no time. Time is not based on movement or dependent on energy, but time is a coefficient or a variable, a constant that is totally different from what we totally understand it as the measure of movement. And time is not just the measure of movement, but time is actually greater than energy. Time is the physical constant before the universe started. It is the constant that began the constant before the beginning and the start of the universe and the end of the universe and the continuity of the universe too. So it's actually greater than energy, and energy is the efficient of the time, because without the time, we cannot have the energy. Okay, and the energy is just a variable of the time, and light is also just a, a, a light is also just a substrate of space. Okay, now we're saying that it's a disturbance in the substrate of space. Yes, so it's a light is basically is light is a quantity of space, basically. So similar states share opposite variance. What do I mean? What do we mean by similar states share opposite variance? That means if you have similar states, you have two similar states being, let's say 1 and 1, or maybe two exact same things. Two exact same things. You can see that this human and the other human, or this strand of hair and this strand of hair, or this butterfly and this butterfly, this plastic bottle and this plastic bottle are the exact same thing across all dimensions. If you can quantify any two things to be the same, to be two similar states, basically, that means they'll share opposite variance, meaning that if you observe one of them, the other one will be totally opposite. Okay, totally opposite with its nature, because they are just similar things, and that's how they're supposed to work. They are not really, they share opposite variance. Their quantum states are oppositely varied, and they are quantumly entangled in such a way that when one is in one state, the other one is in the other state, and it's sort of like two things can't be the exact same thing, basically, because two things can't be the exact same thing. So if you find two things that are the exact same thing, basically one ant and another ant, you see that the difference will be or one particle and another particle. You see that the difference will be that they'll share opposite variance, such that their variables will be opposites. Okay, now I'm saying that I view electrons as occupying a disproportionate and proportionate link in a circuit, not an orbital. Matter arises from the disproportionate and proportionate links between waves and their interaction, and there could be a spatial or extra-spatial particle, and matter waves could be the driving force of the universe. Okay, now what I'm trying to say is that I view electrons as occupying a disproportionate and proportionate link in a circuit. Okay, that means that they are in a proportionate and disproportionate link in a circuit. What do we mean by proportionate and disproportionate link in a circuit? That means if this is the circuit, there are links that are proportionate and disproportionate, basically symmetric and asymmetric within the circuit, and they are not just flowing in orbitals. Matter arises from the disproportionate and proportionate links between waves and their interaction, and there could be a spatial or extra-spatial particle, and matter waves could be the driving force of the universe, meaning that matter waves being the ways that material spread. Okay, the way that spread the material, that be the particle wave duality, could be the main driving force for the temporal spontaneity, or the temporal singularity, or which is being proposed now to be the multiple Big Bangs, or not just the singular Big Bang being the start of the universe, which was actually my initial theory from the start, that spontaneous Big Bangs are responsible for the expansion of the universe. Okay, now we are saying that there could be a spatial or extra spatial particle, a particle that space itself could have a particle, meaning that strings that are the main source of particles in space could actually have spatial particles. There could be spatial string particles, and there could be these spatial particles. Spatial space could have string particles that make it expand. Okay, not just that. I'm also seeing that it's like, so picture the universe to be like not just a balloon that's being inflated, but more like a piece of gum that is being exploded. Okay, like it's being squashed before it's exploded. It's not being filled before it's exploded. Okay, now here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're saying there could be there could be uh, uh, um, implosions and explosions. Matter arise from the disproportionate and proportionate link between waves and their interaction. Okay, that means waves in their interaction, the disproportionate and proportionate link between waves and their interaction creates matter. And there could be spatial or extraspatial particles, and matter waves could be the driving force of the universe. Okay, now I said matter waves. There could be particles that are actually exploding to form the expansion of the universe. And I'm saying string particles. Strings being a connection of smaller particles. String vibrations could be a collective excitation of the primons. Space-time may be a web of these nodes, and strings are parts or braided alignments in that web. This could allow such string particles to evolve in that web. This could and fluctuate or mutate in extreme conditions like black holes or very early universal densities. Okay, let me say that again. Sorry. String particles. Strings being a connection of smaller particles. String vibrations could be a collective excitation of the primons. Space-time may be a web of these nodes, and strings are parts of braided alignments in that web. This could allow string properties to evolve in that web. This fluctuate or mutate in extreme conditions like black holes or early universe densities. Okay, what if the simulation can only run for one person, and the simulation is literally consciousness, and the perception of the simulation by others, not in the simulation of consciousness, is what they call qualia. Now I'm saying that strings being a connection of smaller particles, string vibrations could be a collective excitation of the primons. Space-time may be a web of these nodes, and strings are paths or braided alignments in that web. This could allow string properties to evolve, fluctuate, or mutate in extreme conditions, like black holes or early universe densities. Now, we are saying that string particles are like a collection of smaller particles, whereby the string particles are a collection of smaller particles, basically smaller subatomic particles that make up actual particles, and smaller subatomic particles. They make up smaller quarks and stuff. So we are saying that they make up not just quarks, they make up strings basically. So string vibrations could be a collective excitation of the primons. Space-time might be a web of these nodes, and strings are parts or braided alignments in that web. Okay, this could allow string properties to evolve, fluctuate, or mutate in extreme conditions like black holes or early universe densities. I'm asking a question that's, what if the simulation can only run for one person, and the simulation is literally consciousness, and the perception of the simulation by others not in the simulation of consciousness is what they call qualia? This question is actually very deep. So another thing I'm saying is that We designed the portal basis for frequency path for the field. It's more like the field between the origin and the destination, and the shortest path from each direction of the path and direction of the destination. Stimulation and simulation are the same thing. It goes through different channels, fields, before escaping the matrix. It's not instantaneous. Depends on mental field of the user. Depends on the field of the user. And what I envision is sort of like a mentally controlled energy field around the object or target, which then multiplies in space in the form of portals or portal doorways, leading or driving them through each one in a single dimensional transformation or shifting process. Okay, now imagine that like fruit flies or tiny specks of light in the night sky, and a being with enough energy or a being with the ability to combine, let's say, two or more of them into one tiny source, and then allowing each to occupy the position of the other at in time, and even shifting their original positions. Okay, so it's like different flies, different fruit flies, or different particles in different specks in the night sky. So what we're saying is a being with enough power to merge them, to make two of them into one, or they can either be one and there will be one tiny source and all of them will occupy the position of the other at any time, or even they can shift their original positions. That's basically what I'm saying. That the dimension, the portal is no longer like is no longer like is no longer like a doorway, a two-way doorway between two passing space, but it's more like um it's more like it's such that these particles can be bombarded. It's multiply bombarded in such a way that they can appear in different parts of space at any time, basically. You understand? Now I'm saying that the fastest way to count to 10 is 10. The fastest way to count to infinity is infinity. The fastest way to count to any number is that same number. You understand? Okay, so now here are the findings which we found basically so far. And I'm saying that this is so far the feathering of the quantum the atom theory of quantum science, or the merging of quantum and general relativity. And we know that we're not just merging quantum science and general relativity into one unified theory. We are also proposing an atom theory, and we are proposing it's based on metaphysical and parasential some assumptions that may be pseudoscientific in a way, but they may also be scientific based on the propositions that we find. And we all know that sometimes certain propositions in science, even though unfound, may be the keys to solving those particular fields. So again, we're saying that these are the findings that we found so far, and we can go over them again. We're saying that we are not individuated based on the fact that the soul can exist separately from the body. That's the first one. And we're saying that there's no real thing to prove that gay symmetry isn't emergent and can't be caused. Also, there's nothing proven it exists. That's the second one. Energy can only increase when it's not repetitive or it's not continuous. Example, neutral energy will produce circular motion, while imbalanced energy will produce linear motion. Energy can only decrease when continuous or repetitive. This leads me to conclude that the universe must be continuous since it's expanding. That was the third one that we spoke about. And then the fourth one is that time is greater than energy. The fifth is that similar states share opposite variance. Then we continue to the fact that I view electrons as occupying a disproportionate and proportionate link in a circuit, not an orbital. Matter arises from the disproportionate and proportionate link between waves and their interaction, and there could be a spatial or extraspatial particle, and matter waves could be the driving force of the universe. Okay, now I'm saying string particles. Strings being, we could have string particles basically. Strings being a collection of smaller particles. This is unfounded and this is speculative and unheard of in science because we know that strings are foundational and fundamental and have no other foundational basis. But I'm proposing that strings could have particles that make them up, and strings could be a collection of smaller particles. Strings could be a collection of the excitation of the primons. Space-time may be a web of these nodes, and strings are parts of braided alignments in that web. This could allow string properties to evolve in that web. This could to evolve, fluctuate or mutate in that web in extreme conditions like black holes or early universe densities. What if the simulation can only run for one person and the simulation is literally consciousness and the perception of the simulation by others not in the simulation of consciousness is what they call qualia. Now we've gone over all of these and we've said that we designed the portal basis for frequency parts of the field, and it's more like the field between the origin and the destination and the shortest path from each direction of the path and direction of the destination. Stimulation and stimulation are the same thing. Stimulation and simulation are the same thing. It goes through different channels, fields before escaping the matrix. That means it's not instantaneous. Depends on mental field of the user. We're talking about the portals. Portals depend on the mental field of the user. Depends on the field of the user. And what I envision is sort of like a mentally controlled energy field around the object or target, which then multiplies in space in the form of portals or portal doorways, leading or driving them, each one in a single dimensional transformation or shifting process. So we imagine this like fruit lights or tiny specks of light in the night sky, and a beam with enough energy or having the ability to combine, let's say, two or more of them into one tiny source, and then allowing each to occupy the position of the other at any time, and even shifting their original positions. And the last thing we said is that the fastest way to count to 10 is 10. And the fastest way to count to infinity is infinity. No matter what we find that it is the brain doing it and it is consciousness which is responsible for this. And we need to find the mysteries of consciousness. And we found that particle conglomerates into consciousness, and consciousness could be the whole conglomerate field of the universe or the whole particle field. And there's a deep depth of a particle field that is imperceivable to the naked eye or any regular form of technology, but this is the field of the consciousness which we're talking about.